Hey everyone, I'm Tantum, and today I'm going to show you how I've made my track Future Memories using FL Studio and analog synthesizers. So we're gonna take a look at the project files I've used for this track, and also we're gonna take a look at some patches I've made on hardware synthesizers as well as software. So the original track idea is actually pretty old. It's a track I've made back in 2016, and the working title was There Is Progression. So this track is starting off with a pad that's been played by my Korg Volca Keys. In the new version you can hear it's still starting off with a pad, but it's much more filtered, it's a bit more mellow. Also the BPM is lowered. And I put the bass drum in there right from the get-go, just to be able to beat match it when DJing this track live. Other than that, the instruments are the same. This is actually the original recording of the Volca Keys, which was the first track I've recorded with that synthesizer ever. So the first drop is pretty similar, but you can clearly hear how the original or the old idea just didn't quite get there. I think it's obvious to hear what I was going for, but I didn't know how to pull it off. So if we compare this part, which is like, okay, to the new version. What can I say? I was finally able to get that sound that I wanted in there by introducing the new bass stab. And other than that, the structure is pretty similar. So much for the idea and where the track is coming from. Let's go right into the project file now and see what I did there. This is the project file where I did most of the work. For this project I actually had to do two project files because I went and did the mixing in another file. So the element it's starting with is the pad recorded with the Korg Volca Keys. And it's the original recording from 2016. If I turn off the effects, you can hear there's still some delay printed into it, which I couldn't get rid of because the original project file had that in it, and I couldn't go back further. But yeah, I was able to work with it. The next element are the key stabs, I guess. They're introduced by not by filtering them in, but I'm actually using a Valhalla Supermassive to fade them in. So you can see I've automated the mixer section. So it's actually like fading in, but not filtering. It's a bit smoother until it finally is just playing its regular key rhythm. The next element are the bass stabs. So those ones are actually the Volca Keys too. It's playing in the 5th mode, and I had to do some double tracking. You can see it here. There's 3 recordings, 1 center, 1 hard pan left, 1 hard pan right, and I've cut them together by hand a bit. Valhalla delay in there, and also some EQ. Not much more going on there. So as this isn't the project in its final state, I don't want to go over the drums just here, because what I did is I exported every track individually into a new project file where I did the mixing and redid most of the drums because I wasn't happy with the drum set here. So what's interesting here is mainly the synthesizers, which is mostly recordings because I've used the Volca Keys a lot. But the final, the first drop bass stab, which is this diva here, might be interesting. So it's a pretty simple patch. It's just the initial preset tweaked a bit. I have 3 oscillators running at different octaves and the filter which makes the sound unique. Also there's quite some feedback and noise, which brings up the growly characteristic of this synth. So for effects, if I turn off the effects, it's way less interesting, right? So what I did here is some EQing, some distortion, tube amp by Voxengo, which is a free plugin, good old sound godizer for compression, some transient processing, which is basically a kind of compression too, some delay, some reverb, and the final EQ to fit it into the mix. So much for the original project file. Let's go over to the file where I actually mixed the track. This is the final mixing project file. As you can see, it's all printed audio, and I'm working a lot with automations on different effects and mixing utilities like equalizers and so on. So as you can see here, I finally grouped the tracks into different categories. So channel 5 is playing those weird effects, while channel 4 is playing the melody parts. Channel 3 is for the bass, which is not playing right now, and channel 2 is for the drums. So this just makes it easier to mix the project, because you still have control over the individual tracks, but also grouping them allows you to do some bus processing like equalizing, transient processing, coloring. I did some distortion here on the drums on channel 2. But it's all just really minimal settings, because the mix was kind of good already. This is just polishing the track to its final state. I also did some rearranging, as I like to do. I'm confident in rearranging WAV files, because you can just cut them up. You have to pay attention to the crossings so you don't get any clipping noise, but it's just convenient to work with audio. If you export your stems to another project to mix it, you don't have to stick to the arrangement as it is. You can still move it around a bit, which is what I did here. So for this track, the most important thing was to get the main drop right sounding, to me personally. So I really went for that clean sound. So if you focus on the main drop, and I'll just play the drums for now, it's really minimalistic. There's not too much going on. The drums still have a lot of drive to them because the shaker is playing relentlessly, and the bass part is going from the swelling, moving, almost pad kind of playstyle to really dry and low section. So that's what's making the drops sound unique. In order to make the drums and bass fit together, I did some side chaining on the sub bass. So there's several bass parts playing. There's of course the iconic stab sound, but there's also sub-bass note just playing. But it's so low you probably couldn't hear it if you're not on a big system or on headphones. And because there's a lot of energy at those low frequencies, I had to do some sidechaining to make it not clash with the kick drum. So if they play together, it's really clean sounding. And then after the drop, it's all building up again. And I had to do some tricks to get it all fit together, because when the final break and the final drop come in, there's a lot of instruments playing and a lot of mid frequencies occupied. So at the peak of the track, I automated this band to take away some frequencies. See, it's going down just to make room for the other instruments, because I felt this element, the bass, is not so important at the peak. But then when the other instruments fade away, I bring them back in and it's all playing in its full volume again. So that's one trick how you can make headroom work in your track. So the part the Volca Keys are playing, the pad, is basically a 3-note chord, which is played like this. So if I were to play along, so of course in the original track this patch was played via MIDI, and also there were some effects on the channel. So if I put some reverb and maybe a delay on here, now if I play the patch, I would also automate the cutoff to get that shimmering effect from the delay and reverb. Maybe add some detune. That's pretty much the patch I did for the Volca Keys, which was basically the starting point, the first thing I did for this track. So now for the bass patch, which I'm using for the live session. I'm already sending MIDI to my MIDI module, so I'm getting the CV notes out of here. So because I don't have a buffered multiple in this system, I'm going to use my Ornament and Crime module to work as a multiplier. I'm gonna set the A to its initial settings, which will work fine, and the B will take CV from 1 and trigger from 1 as well. So it's just basically copying the notes that are coming. Mutable Plats is taking the volt per octave from A, and my Doepfer oscillator will take the 1 volt per octave from the B channel. Now I need some way to mix these two oscillators, so I'm gonna use my Happy Nerding VCA to do just that. Alright, by switching here, I'm basically routing those two together and can use them as a mixer, but right now it's not tuned. So what I have to do now is tune the system. So I'm happy with the tuning now, So I'm on to the final step to apply the filter. Perfect. So that's about it for the patch of the Modular. As I said, this is just for the performance video, and it's a rather simple patch. So feel free to experiment and try recreating this patch. That's it for today's video. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure to check out the release on Spotify or Beatport, and also check out my other videos. Have a great day. Bye.